think of something that a lot of smart people around the world are not working. Are you getting more business outcomes by spending the same amount of money with AI? And I can tell you that the answer is a resounding yes. I think the key aspect was in the past the availability of GPUs, which is a precious resource. We do with the cost of gold and silver going very high. I think GPUs are probably on par with that. And in an office, we had this one poster that said better than Google. So because Google used to be the poster boy of technology at that point, right? We take all the complexity out of it. You can put in your LLM settings. You have to beat the existing systems on the performance or the actual business outcomes. It's your destiny. We often let customers actually choose, firstly, the models they want to use, and also the volatility that they are willing to live with.
Hello and welcome to ETAI podcast. I'm your host Radhika, and together we will explore how AI is reshaping business and work. Today we have with us Mr. Ganesh Gopalan, the co-founder and CEO of Gnani.ai, a Bangalore-based deep tech agentic AI company that is building speech recognition, voice bots, and analytics solutions in Indian and multiple global languages that is enabling enterprises automate customer interactions across voice and chat channels. Hi Ganesh, a very warm welcome to ETAI podcast. Before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start Gnani.ai?
Yeah, firstly, thanks very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be part of this podcast. So essentially, I'm not exactly the typical startup founder who's like 18 years old and setting up a unicorn by the time he's 20. So I've been a seasoned, I would say, technocrat in companies such as IBM and a long stint at amazing company called Texas Instruments. While I and my colleague Anand Nagaraj were at TI, we saw the power that IP has in the companies where you develop a fantastic IP and companies can commercialize it over several years. So we started this with a whole promise and a dream to set up a deep tech company out of India. Right? So there were, many service companies in India, but not too many, I would say, deep tech and very few AI companies when we started. So we started this company around 2016-17 when AI was not the hot thing that it is today. And deep tech was really a bad word. I can say that. But we had this dream to set up this deep tech company out of India. And we are on our way to, making that happen.
So you started, Ganesh, you started Gnani.ai in 2016. So what was the original problem statement when you started and how has it evolved over the years given that AI has matured a lot in the last 2-3 years?
Yeah, so let me make it clear. So we were clear right from the start that we want to do this deep tech AI company, right? With a bunch of patents, we want to do this company that focuses on solving deeper problems in industry and very clearly being an Indian company who does that, right? So I think that part hasn't changed, right? So when we started, we said, look, we want to just develop the best speech recognition systems in the world. And in an office, we had this one poster that said better than Google. So because Google used to be the poster boy of technology at that point, right? And, so rather I would say that it was rather a foolish way to start a company in hindsight where we didn't look at the commercial aspects when we started. We said, just want to build some amazing technology that's best in the world, right? The good news is after a couple of years, we had, companies like Samsung who benchmarked us and told us, hey, you actually have for, the Indic languages for which we build speech recognition systems, the most accurate systems in the world, right? So I think that part hasn't changed. We still have our commitment to deep tech. But what has really changed for us is, this amazing, focus on customers that we develop. So today we work with over 200 customers in India, you guys across the world. The focus really is how can we develop AI agents to help customers solve their business problems, right? And by the way, we do that with our deep tech AI. So that's, I think, a fundamental difference here. Today, we call ourselves a company that, is in the business of developing the AI digital workforce for enterprises. But we fundamentally still remain a deep tech AI.
So, Ganesh, can you tell us a little bit more, go a little deeper about what Gnani.ai, when you work with enterprise customers, what exactly does your company do and how is it different from other voice-based deep tech companies, either either homegrown or global companies?
Sure, I think good question, right? So fundamentally, like I told you, we are in the business of being the digital AI workforce for enterprises, right? So what that really means is that, hey, today, probably a lot of our, business comes from, what we do with, voice or voice AI for enterprises. But where we are doing or adding a lot of value today going forward is solving specific problems in enterprise. So, and what really differentiates us is our deep tech. So what we really believe is that to solve many of the problems in industry, you need to have two things, right? You need to have the best possible technology, but you need also to have the, deeper understanding of the customer domains, because we all exist so that our customers succeed, right? So in that context, the best way to describe us and why we are different is, we do AI agents to solve problems in enterprise. Like giving an example, just a couple of examples for you is, we work with, say, one of the largest financial services company, in India, and one of the largest banks, I would say. So, and with them, what we do is we have helped them, for example, collect more than 20,000 crores in the last 6 months and reduce their NPA. So significant impact on their, business outcomes, right? Secondly, we work with another large financials company. And what we help them do is to increase their loan book by about 35%, again in the last 3 months. And again, at a cost that is like 1/3 of the typical cost that it took him to disburse a loan. Right. So I think these are like amazing feedbacks that we get from customers. There's this another customer that we've been working out for almost 4 to 5 years, where what we're really doing is helping him understand his customers. So it's an automotive customer and, I would say the largest OEM or Indian automotive brand. And what we help them is, understand customers better during automotive launch, very quickly help their marketing adapt in real time to, customers' preferences, what they liked about an automobile, what they didn't like about an automobile. And often we had them change their proposition for new automobile launches within a few days. So enormous power that we are giving to marketing teams, business teams, customer support teams, which are, impacting it. And what's changing for us as well is fundamentally we used to be a lot more focused on customer experience and voice. But today we are a company that does text, voice, and video, right? And,
Okay,
and what we really do is we are in the, like I said, we're in the business of solving customer problems and using our AI agents to do that. And very different from other competitors in the sense that, we have our own deep tech, which we think is the best, for our technologies, and use that to solve customer problems.
So when you've used the word deep tech multiple times, so let me dig a little deeper into the deep tech part. So when you say deep tech, do you build your own SLMs or distilled LLMs?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So I think, for example, a lot of the work that we do is voice AI agents, right? And there are like traditionally being 3 elements in a voice AI, right? The pipeline typically has, speech to text or what's called as ASRs. Then you have the SLM layer, and then you have the TTS layer. And then you have an overreaching, orchestration layer that, makes sure that, all the elements work together and gives out an output within, say, 9 milliseconds, right? So for us, start with your specific question on SLMs. So we are a big believer in SLMs, especially for real-time systems, right, in the B2B space. And the reason is simple. When you do SLMs, you obviously have more control on, the output that, these small language models typically give out, that fundamentally reduces hallucinations, right? So that's the best part. But there are other benefits, right? We deal with real-time systems like, voice AI agents that mimic like contact center agents. And, if you want to mimic a human agent, then you got to give out an output within, like I said, 900 milliseconds. And to reduce the latency, you need to have a small model. Some of the larger models often would take, more time to give out, I would say, give out responses. So having a small model reduces latency, makes it more accurate, and especially in a lot of the regulated segments that we operate in, right? Like, for example, the banking and things like banking, you got to be very careful of the kind of messaging that you give out, right? And you got to be careful that it's not important to answer, a question on, say, who's the president of the United States, but it's more important to answer a question related to interest rates, related to BEAM, and, whatever is related for the financial industry. So I think, SLMs are typically our bet on solving problems in the enterprise space. And yes, we do our own SLMs. We are also self-hosted often of some of these SLMs, and we have multiple options. We essentially develop SLMs for every domain, right? We started with the BFSI domain. We have an SLM for that, say a 4 billion parameter model. We also have multiple models for smaller models, again, depending on the kind of use cases. We also have a specific model for just banking. We have a specific model for insurance. So again, it depends on the use case and how broader do you want your model to be. Do you have flexibility on latency? If you have flexibility on latency, you might like to have a slightly larger model. But so there's a lot of give and take that happens. So having that flexibility within you and having our own models gives you the ability to service your customers in the best way possible.
Understood. So basically, you have various SLMs which are specific to each domain. And but tell me something. How do you apply these models to different customer sizes, right? Basically, what I mean to say is you have a domain specific model, but a small bank might approach you. How is your implementation different with respect to a smaller company or a larger company? Is the difference only in terms of parameters, or you have certain use case requirements? How do you know which model to apply in which case?
Yeah, I think it's more of use case dependent here. And also the domain that the company operates in. I think more importantly, it depends on whether you have real-time or I would say, non-real-time use cases, and how tightly that use case has to be tied into, the accuracy aspect, right? So, for example, we have this agentic AI platform called Gnani.ai, and the parameters that we typically have, irrespective of what SLMs you want to use, is this whole thing around temperature, right? So, essentially, what we are saying is that it's your destiny. We often let customers actually choose, firstly, the models they want to use, and secondly, also the volatility that they are willing to live with, right? So this could be, you can just say that, you can put a volatility or a temperature setting as very high. So essentially it means that the model will be more creative, but, you could possibly hallucinate a bit more, right? Or you could have a lower setting. So it's entirely up to us, the customer, to decide together as to which model we want to use and, how we want to service that customer. On, how do you oppose? So essentially we have multiple deployment models, right? One is obviously we have these models in place, but, we are typically also open to have multiple deployment models, whether you, want it on premise, whether you want it on cloud, whether you're on a public cloud, or today, some of the folks are looking at local data centers. I think we offer, all the options and, the right, commercial fit that the customer typically needs. Again, good question on depending on how big the bank or the financial institution is, or any other industry, right? Any other company in any industry. There's a choice to make, and we help them make that choice.
Understood. So you mentioned, Ganesh, you mentioned that speed and latency is very critical in voice bots. And we have also seen when we ask a question, we don't want to wait very long for the response, right? So voice AI is uniquely sensitive to speed. So what model optimizations or architecture have you built to ensure real-time responses, especially across large deployments?
I think that's a great question, right? So I think, so one of the things is that today it's pretty easy for a company they want to is to take an OpenAI real time and spin off a POC, right? But in reality, you will find that none of that works, on scale. None of that works from a price point, neither from a performance point.
Yeah, correct.
So the reality is that to solve it, there's actually a lot of engineering behind it. So I'll give you an example of, there are multiple things that we do as a company. One is obviously a voice AI agent. We also do what's called a real-time agent assist. And thirdly, we also do, some stuff around analytics and a bunch of other things. Today we are getting into, AI agents for underwriting, AI agents for, claims reconciliation, a bunch of those things for organization, not necessarily voice. But back to your original question on latency, on, voice, I would say. So typically a voice AI agent has three components, like I said. One is the speech to text or the ASR. The second is the SLM or the LLM, right? And the third is your text to speech. So this is a typical pipeline, right?
Yeah.
So what we, and then, then there's what people, so the whole thing is all three aspects have to be yours typically so that your overall, latency, round trip latency has to be less than 1 second, right? The other thing is the network layer as well, right? In India, if you're doing a telephony voice agent, there's this whole network, latency as well. You need to take, each one can't be more than, 200 to 300 milliseconds so that your output has to be out there within a second. Otherwise, the person, trying to listen to that call will, will just sign off. Right? So, and that involves what is underestimated here is a lot on the engineering side. So people love to talk on, the most fantastic model. Obviously, our SLM model is the reason why we have a SLM model here, but people underestimate the orchestration, the engineering behind it, right? So, for example, we employ a bunch of engineering principles. There are core software principles, but people think you can just plug three things and make it work together. So we use, a bunch of caching techniques. We use a bunch of techniques that optimize each and every element of this pipeline. Now, this is for the traditional pipeline that I talked about, right? But what's more exciting for us is this new, voice-to-voice models that we are launching. So we announced this in the NVIDIA GTC in San Jose, right? And now with the India AI mission, now we are looking to, do this at scale, right? And what we are doing really here is, with these voice-to-voice models, is that instead of having these three elements in the pipeline, we are crunching two of the elements. So we are having this speech to text and, and the SLM or the LLM model together in one model. And the power of this, right, having fewer elements in the pipeline is, latency is lower.
Yeah.
The second part is like here, what we are also doing is looking at emotions behind the conversations. So typically, the traditional pipeline, you don't look at the emotions. You only look at convert speech to text. Yeah, you might look at the emotions in the text, but really you're missing the real emotions behind the
voice.
Right.
Yeah.
So you look at adding the emotional intelligence, but this also reduces latency. And the third point is obviously makes it more accurate because again, fewer layers means, lesser, I would say, exponential errors, right? So that's the other element that, this helps.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Reducing layer reduces latency. And I don't know, my next question would be on the cost part of it. See, training SLMs has a lot of cost and GPU requirement, right? Obviously, you are going to charge your customers, but how do you manage and how do you optimize this cost? What factors do you keep in mind to optimize this cost?
So basically, GPU usage has two components, right? Essentially, one is, training, one is inferencing, right? And obviously, there's a lot of costs attached to each element, right? And So it's always a challenge on, how do you optimize? So one good thing for us is obviously we're not a company starting out afresh. We are around 200 customers, right? And so it's easier for us that we are already monetized with many of these customers, right? And so that's a great advantage for us, right? Having said that, there are multiple aspects that you could use to, more I'll speak on the inferencing side, multiple things that we, keep changing and experimenting to improve the inferencing and lower our inferencing costs, right? So one of the things, for example, is, which we are, now is having locally hosted, for example, data centers for GPUs. This is one of the aspects that we find now, because again, the GPU costs at some of these local centers could be a fraction of the cost that you might be paying with some of the larger players like hyperscalers. The other thing is from the inferencing side, a lot of the optimization, which I mentioned earlier, when I talked about reducing delays, is also very important, right? So, but the part that I've not really talked about, which is extraordinarily important, is the prompting, right?
Prompting. Okay.
And the prompting and the writing the prompts is often, an extraordinary element, especially to maintain context, right? And hyper personalization for your end customers, right? So what really happens is if you write the perfect prompts, again, it's not just about, doing prompts that will solve a problem, but there's an engineering actually behind prompting as well, so that you make sure that you use lesser tokens, right? So you can, instead of, having this massive prompting, prompts that, span often into multiple pages, if you can, with the most optimum prompt, again, could be lesser tokens, and lesser tokens could be less, GPUs. So I think, in summary, a bunch of the things that we do, that will, that are reducing your inferencing cost. And, it's a very important element and a great question from your side, because people think it's all about calling APIs. People think it's all about, just plugging into systems together and it's going to work. All these things don't work at scale. And then you will never be able to meet the expected price points of your customers.
So you mentioned about prompts, right? Writing, but prompts are written by the end customers, right? How do you optimize the tokens? Because your client is a B2B client, right?
See, we offer what's called an agentic AI platform called India. And in this platform, so we make it just easy to develop AI agents, right? We take all the complexity out of it. You can put in your, LLM settings. You can put in your, you can choose, transcribers. It's just the whole flexibility is with it. But the part that, you have is to write prompts. And we also have we have this, we have the system in our platform that just say, for example, if it's one of the standard problems that you have, right? Let's suppose you're solving something for, say, lead qualification or personal loans, right? So we get a lot of requests on this. So if you just select that in our system, your optimized prompt is already.
Okay.
And that's enormous, right? That gives you amazing value, right? And what it really does for you is to get you the ability, right? To use something that's been tried and tested, right? Which will give you the lowest cost and the most accurate product, depending on, based on all this great work that we've done with our customers.
So that brings to another question. Two questions basically. One, what is the business model? How are the customers charged? And what are the SLAs and metrics that are that you promise your enterprise customers?
I think that's again fantastic question, right? So, and we've learned over time. So traditionally we've been charging customers on a I would say usage basis. This is like the Twilio model, if I can put it that way, right? So essentially we say that, whatever, usage that you do in our systems, let's suppose, you take our ASR services, then we charge you cost per API. If you take our voice AI agent services, we charge you cost per, say, use cost per transaction, cost per message. If you use, our voice AI agents, it could be cost per minute per call. So we always tied it to usage, right? However, we are changing as well today. And because what we realize is that we are adding immense value to many of our customers, right? And it makes sense for us to also, take in some of that risk because we're fairly confident on winning in many of these, helping customers win with their customer problems because we think we are the best in the business. So we have also started offering this as a cost per outcome, right? So
Outcome, not cost per token.
the cost per token is something that, that's a very technology oriented term, right? And customers typically don't, if
Not understand.
businesses, they don't buy into it. So the cost per token makes sense when you're, if you're talking with a highly engineering oriented firm, right? They would understand something when you say that it's a cost per token, right? If you're dealing with traditional enterprises like financial institutions, automobile companies, consumer durable companies, cost per token has no meaning to them, right? So you say, and what we were doing in the past was good. I mean, we're still doing that in many cases, right? We're seeing a cost per conversation or a cost per, cost per sometimes API. That they understand to some extent. But today, what we're saying is we want to make it even easier for them, right? So for example, for a durable company, we would say something like cost per tickets raised, right? Cost per ticket, right? Secondly, for a, financial company, we could say cost per money collected, right? Or for a consumer durable company, we could say things like, automotive company, they're helping them sell more cars, then you could say, cost per sale. So I think, if the time is slowly coming when, if you're doing AI agents, and what are AI agents fundamentally is that you are, you're the digital workforce for customers, right? And if
It's like a commission-based model.
No, yeah. See, look, what I'm trying to say is that the alternative to using AI for companies, like in the past, what companies would do is, hey, look, I'm starting this new business, right? I'll tell my HR to hire like 100 people, right? To start this business. But today or going forward in the future, what they'll do is, I'll hire some 100 AI agents, right? Now, if you had traditional human agents, you would put a KRA on each one of them. And
Correct.
will bring in X amount of business for me, right? So typically, I think in the future is going to be similar for AI agents. They need to be tied to business outcomes.
Well, this is very interesting because I think organizations also feel more comfortable because you also have a skin in the game, right? So it is better for organizations also while you're selling the solution. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress. Obviously, we are all discovering, all this new animal called AI has to be bought and sold. Together we are trying to arrive at something that's best, that reduces risk for the consumer and the producer of these AI agents, right? And also maximizes revenue for both the entities.
So Ganesh, I don't know what is the breakup of your Indian versus global clients or Western clients, but say for example in India where the cost per employee is still relatively low at this stage, how easy it is to convince an Indian company to deploy voice-based AI agents versus call center executives?
So I think the part that we are getting lost here is we're talking on the cost aspect, right? That's what I want to emphasize here, right? So what we need to talk is on the business outcomes. Are you getting more business outcomes by spending the same amount of money with AI? And I can tell you that the answer is a resounding yes. I mean, I'll give you an example. Since you specifically asked on voice, like we're working with this financial services company, just started about 3 months back, one of the largest in India, right? And by the end of the third month, we've beaten their internal, external, and other contact centers, outsourced contact centers, right? By the performance, we have beaten them by about 4%, right? I have not talked about cost yet. The cost is still about half the cost that they would, or one third the cost that they incurred. But really, you can't just be happy by saying that I'm lower on cost. You have to beat, you have to beat the existing systems on the performance or the actual business outcomes. So after 3 months, now we've beaten, the existing systems in terms of performance or business outcomes by about 4%. But hey, incidentally, this is like half the cost of typically what you would incur by, using a traditional, business. So I think
Understood.
the part, there are two aspects and you need to score in both. You can't just say that I'm going to cost less. So I think, any system that's not going to fly. Like, for example, if you're doing inbound contact center support, which we do for several institutions. If you're doing inbound contact center support, then you cannot you cannot say that, hey, I reduced your cost, but hey, I'm not solving enough tickets, right?
Correct.
So I think you have to solve both the problems here.
No. That makes sense, because only cost might have a lot of negative connotations that the companies, and because there could be job losses because of that. So I went into the business route, business questions, but I'll come back to a tech question. You work across multiple domains, and that too your solutions are multimodal, right? So what part of your tech stack is reusable, and what customizations are you required to do for each domain?
Yeah. So firstly, like I told you before, we wrap this agentic AI platform. It's like you want to solve one problem. You don't look up if the existing problem exists in our platform. If that problem exists in our platform, you can take a calculate and start using it. It's as simple as that. And so what I'm trying to tell you here is that, the whole infrastructure is ready to launch. Ideally, you can get started. If the use case is available, I can give you an example. One of the BPOs recently, had a particular use case in mind. There's this guy who's never coded all his life, right? And he had a use case in mind, but he had to launch it, within 48 hours. He went into our system, he saw that there was a use case readily available on our platform, went, used it, made some minor changes in the prompting, that is just plain English. And he was live within 6 hours, right?
Oh, that fast.
Yeah, I mean, we had customers going, very, very large customers going live within 24 hours, many of them. Again, if they want to, really get into the depths of the prompting, the changes, they have some very custom stuff that needs to be integrated. Maybe it will take a week or two. But really, at least the first systems, right, can be out within. We have a challenge typically that you can do a test. You can test your voice AI agent within 5 minutes, right, when you get started, and you can productionize it within 24 hours. So this is typically what we suggest to customers. Obviously, the level of integration, level of testing that they want to do is, depends on the customer. But if you really want to get started, within 1 hour, get it ready. And within 24 hours, launch it in production.
So you're a company with low latency in responses as well as low latency in getting started.
Yeah, I think that's very important because customers are, experimenting with a lot of use cases, right? And they also have limited time on their hands, right? They don't have infinite resources of their own. While they want to use AI to transform their companies, there are only few people available in every department for this, right?
Yeah.
So they will go after what gives the maximum value. They'll do multiple field trials, and that's what encourages customers, right? So don't spend too much time on POCs per se, right? But do a field trial, because sometimes we see, like, for example, most of our products are built for Bharat, right? And, and we, all of us sitting in our offices are not the real Bharat. So if your end customer is someone for Bharat, you better do a field trial. Instead of doing Chennai, you make sure that you do, in some town in Tanjavur, right? Or if, depending on your location, and, you will get a good idea of, whether your products work or they don't, right? And then that's a real test.
No, absolutely. So that brings to another question where you mentioned about Bharat. Now, Gnani.ai is a part of India AI's mission, as we all know. So what specific projects are you driving, and what problems and use cases are you trying to solve as a part of this mission?
So one of the first things that and like I said, from the technology aspect, right now we are more focused on the tech aspect. What we are doing is to solve for this voice-to-voice LLMs. We already have the model in place. We have announced it. NVIDIA GTC, we showed off our architecture in San Jose, and, it had great reception. And now we are taking that to the next level by launching this, trying to do this at scale, for multiple languages. We think this would be a possible game changer in the industry. So this is right now a lot of focus on this, and let's see how things pan.
Okay. So, Ganesh, two questions and actually nested layer of questions. So, what are the biggest challenge that Indian companies face with respect to voice AI? Other than the Hinglish or Tinglish part that we know that we speak, we do not speak English in the way proper English is spoken. We have our local language also mixed in. So that is one part of the problem. Obviously, please elaborate a little bit on that. But what are the other challenges that Indian homegrown voice companies who are building LLMs face today?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost is the point that you mentioned, right? It has to work for Indian languages and speaking a mishmash of. So one of the first things is does it handle multilingual conversations? That's the first thing. That's like a basic thing for most, Indian businesses, right? If you don't handle multilingual conversations, it's going to be difficult. Secondly, do handle, if you just use some global system, even your English models will not work, right? I'll give you an example. In Chennai, people, often use this, one phrase called righto, right?
Yeah.
It means, let's go ahead or it's right. And, but you don't have that phrase anywhere in the world, right?
Correct.
So that's similar for and obviously Mumbai is famous for its own Mumbai slang, right? And so your models, unless they are homegrown, and we all know that the second part is the linguistic features of every language and, every person changes, every few kilometers. So unless you have, speech to text systems that are built to handle this linguistic differences, it's like, for example, you have you took a global model and, you expect it to work for India. And to give you an example, I'm Tamil, right? I was born in Mumbai, spent all my early days in Mumbai, but had, spent time in multiple cities of India and the world, right? So all those influences would be on me. But the way a person take back to my origins, speaks, say, Tamil in, say, Mumbai suburb called Chembur, and how a person speaks in, say, Tanjavur and how a person speaks in Chennai are going to be very different. And you need to capture that difference in your training data. Otherwise, your Tamil inferencing is going to be totally off. Right? So I think that you need to have core detect systems that capture that, which I think a lot. The other thing, like I said earlier, is again, de-emphasize on their engineering. So you need to handle things at scale so that, you are easy to do a POC, right? But unless you have great DevOps and great engineers, it's going to be very difficult to scale that up at the lowest possible cost.
So what about infra, Ganesh? Because you're building for India, you will be charging in Indian rupees or Indian pricing, right? And while as part of India mission, 34,000 GPUs have been provided, I am not familiar with the cost aspect of it. But other than that, if you have to pay in the dollar pricing, your math might not work, right? So are we at any disadvantage with respect to infra compared to the global AI companies?
I think a key aspect was in the past the availability of GPUs, right? Which, it's a precious resource. We do with the cost of gold and silver going very high. I think GPUs are probably on par with that. And it's because you can even get hold of gold and silver. Often it's difficult to get hold of GPU. But I think the government has done a good step by, promoting this whole GPU thing, right? And making it available. And we also, all of us are hearing about this, soon we're going to get, better versions of these GPUs in the market. And, so I think that's the key precious resource today, right? Because, it's a question of how much do these companies also, it's not that even if they have to stock up GPUs, how much you need to get ahead of time, how do they estimate demand? So it's difficult for the infra companies as well, right? So I think this is the key aspect. I think that talent is obviously there, in India.
Yeah.
So
yes,
there's been no doubt about it. The third thing is obviously access to capital, right? And
yeah,
I think you have to face the facts that we are no Silicon Valley, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
that part we are obviously, way behind the US and China, right? In terms of, and things are really looking up earlier, like deep tech used to be a bad word, but now it's, companies are actually starting to get funding in the space. But I'm not too sure how long term that funding is compared to, what he's seen, say, Silicon Valley and, say China. And, it's also, in context, the level of M&A activity and, stuff that happens in Silicon Valley. But they built that ecosystem over so many years, and today China as well. So I think we have a long way to go in terms of, patient capital, many of this, I would say not just AI, right? For anything that requires a long period of time to develop. I mean, that's one thing that obviously is holding a lot of folks back.
So I want to ask, like, what is the size of, I mean, you have been in this space for a very long time. Even before you started Gnani.ai, you were doing something similar in TI, right? But for somebody to start today, what is the size, if you have to assess the size of conversational AI or voice AI in India, how would you assess that, and how does the market look in next 2 to 3 years?
So that's a very difficult. Firstly, we are not a conversational AI company or an agentic AI company. So we do a lot.
Okay, agentic AI company.
So we lot more than conversational AI, right?
Okay.
But specifically to say, like, even if you look very specifically on.
No, let's talk about agentic AI then. Sorry, my bad.
I think that's like a billion or a multi-billion dollar. I mean, it's everybody tries to put a number, so I'm not going to do it. But I think you can be rest assured that it's a few $100 billion. And but what I'll specifically like to talk about, what is in my control, the last 4 to 5, I would say 3 to 4 months, we have won about 60 new customer logos, and I would say we've gone live with about 200 new use cases, right? So I think that shows that there is amazing adoption and willingness among Indian customers to get into AI, right, and adopt that. But I think you have to look at it this way, like, if you really want to understand the market, the way I look at it, I know that a lot of people are now talking about AGI being there in 3 years and, super intelligence being there in about, say, 6-7 years. But let's not even go there. Even with the current level of AI technology that there is, right? I think there's a lot of scope in terms of, AI agents. Look at it this way, look at, a lot of the routine stuff that we all do, and that's all going to be taken over by AI in the next few years, because it is, even with not getting to an AGI level, I would say reasoning, I think there's a lot of stuff that can be done, using the current level of AI technology. Is already a few $1 billion here.
So I know it is a very difficult and very broad question, but let me ask you, what are the 3 most important or the biggest in terms of, revenue opportunity, 3 most important use cases which people can use AI to solve? And I'm totally talking from a market potential perspective.
You mean India or globally or very?
You can talk about India and then globally talk about them differently.
See, I think I'm firstly not a great expert, but let me just tell you that the immediate opportunities for people who want to see revenue, like people like us, we're doing a lot of work on enterprise, right? Solving the problems in enterprise, right? AI agent for enterprise. So that's what we do. But the more important use cases that are going to come up is things beyond conversations and stuff, like, a lot of stuff on the healthcare, right? Which is going to be the massive opportunities, that you're really going to see, right? It's going to be incredible, right? So because, a lot of the problems in healthcare, or advancements in medical tech, have been limited by, I would say, ability to reason, ability to process immense amounts of data. And with that being there, you're going to actually find a lot of these diseases being solved. I'm hoping that we do find a solution to cancer and things like that. I'm always an eternal optimist, at some point. So I think healthcare is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries. Specifically to India, I think education, something that's up to my heart. I think, if if we are able to get more and more people in India educated, given the, immense intellectual capital we have, we could just get, our country to a totally different level is one of the most difficult problems. And I think some of the stuff that we, are done in the space are going to solve that. And that's one of the reasons we also embarked on a lot of this government stuff that, how can we solve problems in healthcare? How can we solve problems in education? And because those things will drive any country forward.
So, Ganesh, now this would be my last question. I know you've partially answered it, but given your extensive experience in being a startup founder as well as a lot of corporate experience, what advice would you give to our young entrepreneurs who are starting in the space of AI and tech in India?
So I think firstly, I would advise them don't do AI, right?
Okay.
To become competitors. But, jokes aside, so essentially what I would say is that try to do things ideally that, are not done by others. Then you'd see that maybe those are, the hot areas of the future. So plan for 10 years down the line. I don't think we were clever. We were not clever enough to do that when we started, but it just happened. We said we'll get into AI. I want to do something futuristic, and things worked out. But I would say that I think there are going to be a lot of advancements beyond AI. Obviously, AI will be one component of it. What I'm trying to say is that, today's opportunities are going to be a lot on, like I said, healthcare, education, defense. I think there is just too many opportunities today. But think of something that, a lot of smart people around the world are not working, right? And which are very big problems, are unsolved problems. And I think if you solve them, there's a lot that you can do and succeed. I mean, that's, I think that's the best way to look at it. Be patient, spend more years, more time trying to learn about the problem and solve it. While doing that, I'm sure that,
I mean, AI will just be a means, but you should look at solving real problems, right?
I think the world is about solving the real problems, right? I mean, all exist to solve real problems, right? I mean, if you're an LLM company per se, like OpenAI, the problem they are solving is, very different. If you're if an agentic AI company, yes, you might develop your own tech, but really you are solving a different problem, right? And again, if you're a healthcare company, you might be in the business of developing the best drugs, right, to solve certain diseases. But incidentally, you might use, AI for it. If you're a financials company, and all these companies they're going to be AI first financials company, AI first banks, AI first medical companies, right? So all this stuff, but their end goals are to, solve problems for those industries. And will they use a mix of, AI would be one part of it, but they may also be creative in many other ways, maybe manufacturing, or many other ways to solve that problem. So there's immense opportunities all across the world in the next few years, and really expect a lot of the young folks in the future to start companies and take business forward.
Thank you so much, Ganesh, for such an informative and inspiring session. And with this, we wrap up our conversation. Stay tuned with us to hear more about the conversations of business of AI and how AI is reshaping business and work. Until then, bye. Have a nice day.